Hi, good evening, all. Thank you for joining us today. On behalf of ISAC, I would like to very warmly welcome all of you to our second webinar. In this series of webinars, we've organized for CISOs, and these programs, these sessions are delivered by CISOs as well. CISOs of large conglomerates and leading banks. So today is our second session, and we have invited an expert to speak to you on the subject of cybersecurity from a board perspective. As you can see on the slide, we've invited Suresh Emmanuel. He is the Senior Vice President and the Chief Information Security Officer of Hatton National Bank. And if you look at the slide beneath the name of the organization in which he works, you can see a repertoire of qualifications, which is a testament to all of his academic achievements. And as you can see, he has a master's in cybersecurity and another master's, 3 master's degrees. And it is interesting to note that one of his master's degrees is in entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial studies. And he is the ideal person, I believe, to speak to you about how you can convert tech risks or present technology-related risks as business risks, or in the language that the board understands. He is also certified. Yeah, he has many certifications, CISSP from ISC2, and he has the CISM CISA and the data protection qualification from ISACA. He's also certified in ISO 27001 and is currently reading for his master's degree in data science. So as you know, the format of today's session is he will speak to you for about half an hour to 45 minutes, and then we will have a question and answer session. If you do have any questions, you can post it in the chat box or in the Q&A, and I will post it to the speaker. So with that very brief introduction, I would like to invite Suresh to commence his presentation on cybersecurity from a board perspective.
Right. So thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ashin, for that introduction. And thank you, Isaka, for having me here and also inviting me, giving me opportunity to present about cybersecurity from a board perspective. So let me navigate my presentation. All right. So before we start, I like to get an input from audience that why do attacks actually happens? You can actually, post it in the chat. There could be many reasons. If you can tell us or share with us why do attacks really happens based on your perspective. So while all these answers coming up, so let me share, one of the key factors, based on the recent data breach report of IBM, right? So attacks actually can happen for many reasons, right? But such as certain attack vectors such as the cloud misconfiguration could be or maybe a stolen or compromised credential, which is the most common. Over 16% of the attacks actually happening based on that. So and also the very common one like the phishing is mainly targeting users, your endpoint users, especially who lacks in basic awareness about security. And also, interestingly, the malicious insiders, it could be a business compromise, And on and off, we also hear about zero-day vulnerabilities being exploited across the board, and social engineering. There could be quite many reasons, right? But you won't believe, out of all these attacks, or everything, most of them are happening, there's an underlying a bigger reason behind it. I'm going to demystify that reason quite slowly, or gradually within this presentation. So when you also consider the cost of data breach, as of last year, it's actually reached almost, $5 million, which is which is not a really I mean, it's alarming figure, and probably it's we might not even certain countries. I didn't think. Will not have even their GDP which is aligned to this. So, with the most alarming figure, the average cost for data breach, it's keep on climbing only. So, if you most likely towards end of this year, this cost of data breach will be, even more than that, most likely to hit $5.5 million, right? Then, unfortunately, the cybercrime damages, so the cybercrime syndicates actually, they altogether, which not only from data breaches but altogether, they which is expected to come over 10.5 trillion dollars towards the end of 2025. Like only only couple of countries globally has this amount of dollar reserve. So the GDP revenue generated globally also. But if you put across, if you put consider that cybercrime itself as a country, you know how much wealthy is that country. The 10.5 trillion dollars is a quite massive amount, which is, we are expected to hit, right? So that's the level of a problem we've been discussing today. So even with today's quite developed, controlled environments, also, if we consider the quite a number of industries which are actually impacted by cyber attacks, especially if you focus on the right side of the presentation, you can see the healthcare and the financial industry as always quite leading on the top. But compared to last year, the healthcare industry data breach, no, compared to 2023, healthcare industry, the data breach status cost is actually gradually gone little down. But however, you can clearly see the financial sector, which is unfortunately got increased a little bit. So it is expected to increase, passing $7 million towards end of this year. So that's the level of cost of a data breach by industry as of today. But if you also consider, what factors that actually can reverse the average cost of a data breach, if you clearly go through, even by appointing a CISO, that itself over 140K data breach cost get reduced by appointing a CISO itself, based on the recent research reports by IBM. Why is that? Because you have somebody to take care of your problem, somebody dedicated to take care of this data and the cyber or the information security related concerns within the organization. And when very important, the line just above the board's oversight, right? Hold on. Right. So you can see the board level oversight itself will add another 150K of cost reduction or data breach reduction in terms of financial value to the organization. But any organization, what is the most important one on the top? Employee training. So we probably expect more sophisticated solutions to this kind of a problem, but unfortunately, the base, we have to go to the the basic principles. But if you think about employee training, which is the most primary thing we all talk about in the organization, starting from induction training to doing consistent and continuous awareness to employees about the data threat, how they have to be get protected, how they need to be more vigilant, and especially selecting or especially when they get phishing emails. So that itself actually give an upper hand to the organization. And interestingly, when organization actually use AI and machine learning driven insights, it from this year, last year onwards, right, the AI and machine learning driven insights actually came into second place, which is quite interesting because it has a quite impact of security automation, even your incident response, and also leveraging threat intel more proactive way. So that has an impacted to reduce the cyber attack cost quite a significant way, which is a quite interesting facts for us to always understand and analyze. So based on a survey done by one of the big four firms, then they were asked quite a number of board of directors what are the greatest concerns of the board when it comes to technology risk, right? So the based on the data availability, I took 2022 and the 2023 reports. So based on the most concerned based on the responses was especially if you take the 2023 one, disruption of the operation, especially when you hit by a cyber attack, right? So and in your organization go out of operation where you can't do your normal day-to-day operation is one of the main concerns by the board of directors. It's about 36% of the board of them have selected this as a main concern. Equally, they have selected the internal data becoming public, so which is a data breach. Because as soon as the data leaves your organization, you can't take it back. That's the unfortunate situation. Even if you go for a third gen kind of a ransomware attack where the attackers actually corner you in a situation, if you don't pay the ransom, right? You'll have to we gonna leak your data, or sometime we gonna inform the regulator itself. So that kind of situation is now at the moment organizations are facing. But that is one of the main concerns, especially your internal data becoming public, because once it is on public, it is public. You can't really take it down. So it's not a really it's not a something you can really do. And the reputational damage is one of the main concerns from the board as well, because when you lose your reputation that your organization you know uh, do not significantly focus on, or that you don't have the right focus for your customers data protection and the cyber security, then that itself has an impact to the digital trust of the digital products you create for your customers. So that has a direct impact to your revenue and also for the reputation. So with which in turn, especially for a bank and finance industry, it's quite important, especially to create digital trust. The right focus is as always required for the board, because it's easy for board to take their eyes off cybersecurity when current events take precedence and raise new concerns. Because when you have different other issues coming up, most likely sometimes we see from the board perspective, cybersecurity related concerns are given less priority, or taken at the probably very later part of the board meeting sometimes, right? So they have probably other things to deal on. So that actually create an environment where you lose focus on the technology risk. The other part is the overwhelming and the currently and consistently changing threat landscape. the complexities where the cyber criminals are, kind of not standing still. They consistently change the way they are approaching organizations, and the complexity is also becoming, more increasing more and more. So that actually also create very difficult for them to give right focus to, because you really can't see, what there's no silver bullet for it, and you really can't see a kind of a direct solution, and it's a quite a moving target for you. So it actually also create a very resistant environment or very difficult environment for them to give the right focus. And also, again, as I said, the other priority should not, you know, kind of overshadow the cybersecurity, especially, when we are in a deeply interconnected world. So if one of your, as CISOs or as, cybersecurity professional, if we ask your board, are we ready for the cyber risk? Is your organization is prepared for a cyber attack in next 12 months time? So actually this survey was done some time back. So actually the clear answer was asked not only from the board of directors, but also from the CISOs from various industries. 53, um oh, I think over 57% of the board of directors said they are unprepared for a cyber attack. And also, um, 61% of the CISOs, they are clearly said, we are not prepared for a cyber attack. So that's something you need to consistently validate yourself. I think I'm be covering a couple of key takeaways as part of it. What you should be doing to be better prepared for a cyber attack, because it's nowadays, there's no organization is immune for cyber attack. It's about, how you build the cyber resilience in your organization, how fast you can come back in case of a cyber attack, and how best you can contain an attack, and how best you can, your incident response can be, um, if you can increase the effectiveness of your incident response, that is where you can mean time to detect and mean time to respond, and that window has to be very narrow, and how best you can make it narrow. So those are the conversations at the moment we are having. So because we all sit on a time bomb, we always have to consider, but there could be different reasons for why all these answers are coming from even from a very global survey, where we have a lot of Fortune 500 to other companies, who actually invest very extensively for technology risk. Maybe, as we all say, not enough budgets or resources. That could be a reason, or lack of skills and partnerships. I think skill is always a concern. I think we are short about 3 million skilled resources, especially when it comes to cyber security. So I think there's quite a number of programs initiated by different professional bodies. One of that is, giving a CC certificate free of charge through ISC squared for most of the cybersecurity professional to, uplift the interest of the cybersecurity domain, especially for university students. So that's one of the key reasons, because we are lack of skills as well as good partnerships. So, for example, if we try to do a good quality engagement for an organization, we don't have skilled resources or partners who can actually deliver a good quality job, because that's quite a lack in the industry and the market. In addition to that, as I said, no silver bullets, and it's a moving target. So as I said, I mean, you can't do something today and, kind of relax yourself that you will be protected for next uh, couple of months or years. So technically speaking, you can't, even after a significant level of investment, you still have quite a number of things to do when you really think about, what you have done. So it's a keep on moving, and it's a moving target, and there's no silver bullet to it. And as we already discussed about the rapidly evolving and increasing threat landscape, it's never like before, right? So the, like we do have access to a lot of LLM models, the AI ML related tools and the techniques. So do the cyber attackers or the cyber criminals. So they'll also have access to these tools, and though so that they also will be, automating certain things. They're also using these tools to save some time and also to do a more sophisticated attacks. So that's something we can expect over the coming years. More importantly, over anything, the main issue, or based on the survey done by McKinsey Group, the trust gap is has one of the main concern, which actually, uh, create ambiguity even for board of directors. Because let me deep dive into a little bit more into this trust gap, right? So based on the one of the papers released by the McKinsey and the company, right? Trust gap between different layers, such as a trust gap between the board and the business or the C-suite, and the board and also the IT security or the technology teams, and also the business or the C-suite and the external vendors and the suppliers, and also the probably the trust gap between the statutory regulatory bodies, government institutions who are outside of the organization. There are trust gaps exist at the different levels and many levels, right? That actually creates actually that has an impact to, you know to actually incident to occur, or especially to a cyber attack to happen, right? Why trust gaps are actually created, right? So if I explain you from the board perspective, you can't be interested in something that you don't know. So that's because that's I'm actually going to that problem in a while, because the as a board, if you don't know what is happening actually on ground level, you really can't make a lot of interest about it. That creates the trust gap between the management and the board. And when you don't have a clear, understandable answers to the questions, again that creates or that develops the trust gap. Why actually it happens? So, for example, so when actually board ask you questions, can you give a clear answer? For example, sometimes they ask you very difficult questions such as, are we safe? What's your answer will be? Will you be telling that no, we are not safe? Then they're gonna get panic. Can they ask you, okay, so we are not safe? That's mean, are we, can we get a cyber attack like today or tomorrow? What's your answer on that? Well, are you going to tell them, no, no, we are really safe. So we have these and we have these securities, all this stuff. I'm actually covering those aspects a little bit in detail because that's a very tricky question to answer, right? And it's a very subjective answer to give also. So that with all the way we communicate those key points to the board, that actually create trust gaps with them. Then, poor follow through, that creates obviously doubt and trust gap. So sometimes, we don't really follow through and give them the consistent updates to the board. How many of us actually present our cybersecurity strategy roadmap to the board, and also the activities we are planning to do throughout beginning of one financial year? And how many of us consistently updating them the progress and what are the problems we are trying to achieve or address through this security controls implementation, how that going to add value to the business? And how many of us towards the end of the financial year present to the board about these are the projects we did, and this is how our cybersecurity posture has improved from X to Y throughout the year, and this is the way we have increased our resiliency. So without that oversight, it actually creates, trust gap between the board and the management. So if you consider the business, right, cybersecurity often considered as a, inconvenience for business. Why? Because we always try to introduce a lot of sometimes seen as a roadblock because we always try to make their life harder. We try to make sometimes things complicated. So there's a scale between performance and control. So how you balance between, that's where your skill comes in. How the Because the effectiveness of cybersecurity control is also dependent on how well you define the control, and the well part is actually depend on how much of your users effectively following your controls. If they always find a workaround, that means your controls are failed. Obviously, the lack of leadership alignment. So I mean, business usually think in a bit of agile way to get certain things done a little faster, whereas cybersecurity or the technology is not supporting them to in order to go that speed, and also giving them the assurance that even if you go really fast, we'll make sure that our digital trust of the customer data is protected. You don't have to worry about it because we have these processes, controls, and the security in place. Then that alignment is not there, and obviously they don't understand, lack of understanding. That's where the user, you have to be advocate to the business. You need to make the business leaders within the organization understand what is the importance of cybersecurity, how it can complement to the business, and how well it can help to create digital trust for your customers. So when we do a little bit of deep dive into what creates these trust gaps, we spoke about both they really don't understand and why they don't understand. Let's see. So based on a survey done by Deloitte, right? So about 2% of the board members, right, globally, if you take board uh, as a whole, in the globally, only 2% of the board members on average have some level of cyber expected or the experience of some level of cyber literacy, which is alarming concern. That's been quite a number of about 98% of the board members, they don't speak technology, or they have very ambient or a uncertain view of cyber literacy. So that's a concern that again it goes back to you can't really have interest or something you don't understand. Then, as I said, about 2% is really understand it. So then if you take the many board members, they don't feel confident about security oversight, and they have very uncertain view of board's role regarding the security, right? So that they don't know, what is the missing part also, right? So they have a different view for cyber security or the cyber uh, security related investments, or the controls, the processes, and the policies within the organization. So because of that, it is often seen cybersecurity as a checkbox type exercise, right? So because your regulator wants you to have a particular solution such as a SIM, okay, you approve that investment, you get it, that investment onboarded, it's done, right? But how well this solution add value to the organization, what are the use cases it has configured, and what is the ROI, what is the leverage of this solution, probably not even thought through. So I'm covering a little bit about compliance versus security in the latter part of this presentation so that you can have a deep dive on it. And sometimes board will see, someone will take care of this, like CISO, IT security, probably CIO of certain organizations, so that they'll see, okay, someone will take care of this. So that's how it is always seen. And sometimes it is considered like never happened before. Or what is our peers are doing it. Sometimes, when we try to get an investment justified, sometimes, who are the other people actually using this solution locally. So are we the guinea pigs for this solution? Or can we wait somebody else already started using it and then see whether we really need it? So that's also sometimes, because that deprioritization will also happen sometimes for cybersecurity investments. And um, one of the most riskiest part is the false sense of security. Good example is sometimes, if you have DLP implemented or data leakage or loss prevention technology implemented in organization, mostly people will think that you are fully covered for a data leakage incident. That's not really the case. And sometimes when you have a EDR solution implemented, your board or somebody will have a false understanding that now you are quite better in security. Yes, obviously you will increase your security maturity level, but as we previously discussed, it's quite a moving target, right? So in that case, that false sense of security will give them quite a false picture or a wrong picture. So something you will have to understand is sometimes even the way we respond to the data. I've also worked for big four firms. Sometimes I've seen the way management comments are coming for the certain audit reports. So we when they sometimes the management as a management we really don't really want to accept that certain improvements or findings from an auditor, whereas usually try to counterattack it and say that no, we have this control, that control, we have this workaround, so that we really don't really need to worry about this control implementation, so that we can take care of this with the current state. That again gives a false sense of security for the board and even for the higher management. So what is the dangerous thing about this false sense of security, right? There's a real world example. you know um when Israel and Palestine actually they were um, there was an attack actually happened in 2023, where the Hamas actually tried to uh, overwhelm the Iron Dome. Everybody thought Iron Dome can take any level of attack, especially when it comes to missile attack, which is targeted to Israel's. But then Hamas actually proved by using very cheap missiles, they it actually able to overwhelm the Iron Dome. So even though your organization might be thinking, okay, we have Iron Dome in place, so we don't really have to worry about it, so that we can take care of any cyber attack in future. Unfortunately, the attackers or bad guys consistently, cyber attackers consistently, they prove you are wrong. There's so much to do, right? Because you have to be right all the times, whereas a attacker only has to be right only one time or one instance. So that's the end of the story. That's the end game about it. So what you can do, I think, as a CISO, you have to think like a board member, right? So now we can see security is consistently coming up as a permanent agenda item in most of the board meetings, in most of the, at least in the banking and financial sector. But do you know over uh, what are the key questions the board of directors need to ask from the CISOs to prepare? Or as CISOs, are we creating a background or a conversation with board of directors to ask these questions, such as what does our security posture look like today? How many of board members actually ask this question? Because we don't really create an environment or cyber literacy for them to ask this question. And do we have adequate capabilities and resources to detect and mitigate a cyber risk to our business? How many board members actually ask that? And another question like, do we have visibility to mitigate and risk efficiently and effectively? And how do we measure and report security activity? And also the incident response. In the event of a cyber breach, are we prepared to respond efficiently to manage a situation that have the least damage to our organization, right? So these conversation has to be taken up with the board so that what you have to do is you need to take these questions to yourself by thinking like a board member and create or articulate answers to these questions where you can present to the board and as an eye opener for them, right? So cybersecurity is quite is all about taking the right risk, not really choosing the right technology. Your business today might come and say, okay, so we really gonna invest on this blockchain kind of technology, right? You have to enable them by taking the right risk. How you securely enable them to take that business initiative securely. That's something you need to think about. As the slide says, the 70%, 77% of the board members believe that cybersecurity is a top priority, which is a good thing. But again, we have to eliminate the trust gaps, which I previously spoke about. So you need to speak like a board member. That's the transformation you need to take yourself. How you do that? You have to talk business actually, not the technology. Meaning, use examples and illustration appropriate for interested for business experts. Sorry, not really for the technical experts. Meaning, when you have to go to the board, you need to, when you especially when you try to describe technology risk to the board, there are a lot of background activities you need to prepare yourself before you go to them. You need to first understand what is the level of that risk, what is the financial impact that risk actually creates with them, what is the likelihood, depending on the current controls we have, in case that risk got materialized, what is the business impact can happen, and how bad it can go, and what is the contractual obligation can be breached, what is the statutory regulatory requirement cannot be met and subject to penalties. With all that, how much you can quantify that particular risk. And also, as I said, you need to go and talk to them in their language. Then only they'll gonna understand. Then you have to be a impartial guide and a facilitator for them, so that they you will be able to demystify certain trade-offs for the board members and guide them through the decisions that prescribe in the solution as an authority. So you need to guide them uh, to the solution through by advocating them and by providing adequate information, and also minimizing the trust gap between the something they don't understand. So that is really really important. And also center on the ROI, especially in terms of strategic relevance, right? So always show how your security initiatives align with your business need and long-term priorities of your business, right? So when your business is planning to expand to demographically to certain other countries, how the data privacy related standards and the controls will complement the business, how you can gain trust of certain other part of the world customers who are actually probably happy to invest in your business. So those things has to be properly given them a picture so that they will think this as a value, and also how you can bring the return of investment, total cost of TCO, we call total cost of ownership, to the by security investments, right? How best you can reduce certain security overheads or operational overheads. So those are the factors you need to calculate and show it as part of your projects. And especially, nowadays you can't be procuring the point solutions. You should be obviously thinking out of the big picture and architecting solutions in a way where you give them the consolidation data security environment or the interconnected security environment. So in that way, what is the P&L impact when you try to do that, right? So all of these things has to be oversight has to be given to the board of directors, and also focus on the opportunities, not really the cost, because the opportunities actually, as I said, helps you to understand the taking the right risk for the organization, right? So when you give them the understanding of the opportunities by speaking like a board member, they will always consider you know, opportunity or investment over the cost. CISOs who show actually how security can derive revenue, you can also a champion of your business as a business enabler. So because you have to be part of the business, because that's why now I think there's a separate role coming up globally called BISO, Business Information Security Officer, right? So probably not really in our part of the world, but if you can see in certain platforms, you can see there are BISOs are there. So how you can actually enable the business, that's the conversation you need to have with your board. And most importantly, how you can quantify the risk or the technology risk. You need to have a methodology within your organization implemented or come up with a way as part of your enterprise risk management, right? Where you talk in numbers, where with the quantitative figures, not really high, medium, low, or critical. If one of those board members ask you, okay, you say this risk is high, what is my high? Or what is a critical risk for me? And if we have a critical risk, can we, just stay calm and talk like this, like you come and present here? Or, are we, going around and trying to fix it immediately? So it's depending on the, how much impact it can actually create to the business. So that you need to implement a methodology within the organization where you can have to quantify your risk. Because if you take most of the other risk part of your organization, such as for a bank, credit risk, market risk, liquidity risk, all of these are quantifiable. But because of the very agile nature of the cyber risk, it's very difficult to quantify. But there are methodologies and there are systems which actually can help you to quantify. So that's something you need to explore and learn and convert your enterprise risk management methodology in the organization to quantify the technology risk. It's about translating risk into a business risk, basically the technology risk into a business risk, and how well you can do that. That's your success is actually depending on as a CISO also, as part of it. Again, the making the case happen or making it happen. Don't be afraid to try different approaches, such as, you know, always try to do the bridge the knowledge gap, such as doing the tabletop exercises, scenario simulations, and sharing certain experiences about certain attacks happen, the lessons learning out of them, also taking certain experts who can really do that. Doing this quite often will not harm, so that it will help your top executives as well as the board to have a good understanding, also to bridge that knowledge gap what they may have, and also your C-suite and the peers. So as a CISO or a C-level executive or as head of security, it's your responsibility to have a good rapport between your other executive leaders and fellow executives. So that way they'll also be advocate for you, especially, safeguarding who else is responsible to drive certain business initiatives. That is really, really important. That's where your cross-functional collaboration skills are really important. And also your change management skills, the way you implement certain controls within the organization. Those things are really important so that business leaders will take it more positively, and also they'll become an advocate for you, especially if you try to introduce a example, if you try to introduce identity access management within the organization. It's a quite large project, but by bringing in what is the value you can bring into the customers, how well you can protect the customer's identity. So those value additions, these other fellow executives will help you to, you know, um, drive these kind of initiatives. And as I said, keep the communication lines open. Try to build a rapport between board members. That means you need to consistently give them updates and also consistently be with them. If you have a board member who are good in technology, always better to keep in touch with them. When you take decision, take you through them, then you can avoid last minute surprise when you try to take a security investment, especially you go beyond certain millions of dollars of investments, right? So because unfortunately I always say the security cybersecurity or the security technologies are like cancer treatment, right? So because we all know the cancer treatments are quite expensive. So do the security investments. But both, if you don't do it, kind of you die, right? So similarly, you need to maintain the rapport with the board members and also pitch them quite often, and also take them through with the consistent updates. What you are really planning to do? What are the risks you are trying to address? What is your thought behind it? And how that going to help your business agility, and how it going to complement your next couple of years business growth. That's something you really need to communicate to them, so that they'll aware where are you coming from and what is your strategy, and why are you really need this kind of security, because they will not understand what you really want. They will only understand when you tell them. So one of the again key factors, increasing companies are being accounted for a lot of by regulatory statutory bodies such as GDPR and PDPA for Sri Lanka, and the central bank's sectoral resilience guide for quite accounted for regulatory compliance. But when you think about compliance and the security, the board and the especially top executives, they'll have a different views, right? Sometimes you might be doing something for a compliance, but not really for the security, right? So that has a resulting in, when you understand the compliance or security, it's like, you're putting the cart before the horse. Obviously, you can't really meet the purpose of having a cart, right? So because of, give you a good eye opener example, right? In 2023, when TIA, Teachers Fund, got attacks over this movie data breach happened, right? About 2.3 million custom data got impacted. But if you go and check your websites, right, compliance wise, they are quite strong. They are ISO certified, NIST certified, payment card PCI certified. With all these compliance credibilities or the controls they have implemented, right? Then what went wrong? Is it a compliance failure or a security failure? That's why it said always aim for security, right? So then you will always land within the compliance. And I would like to share some key takeaways for you as part of this presentation. You always have to think about security beyond compliance, right? Third party risk assessments and security scorecards is essential for your organization, and doing consistent threat hunting and the forensics readiness. Very important. What you mean by forensics readiness? Why I recently, had the opportunity to go with the largest and the globally leading forensic threat hunting group training. So then only I realized, why most of the forensic investigations are taking time, because most of our environments are not really forensic ready. So most of the attackers knows that, so that they can silently come in the environment, they can go. But when you try to really do an investigation, you realize what are the types of logs are missing, whether your endpoints are forensic ready, whether your systems are forensic ready, whether your network is really forensic ready. So without that, without you creating that with consciousness, or you also sometimes you can call it incident response ready environment, right? So without doing that, you will not be able to mature your cyber resilience. Also, continuous security assessment such as penetration testing, red team assessments, internal red team assessments, especially, targeting a framework such as Might Attack framework. And also, what is continuous security assessment? Not periodic security assessment. We used to be talking about periodic security assessment some time back. Nowadays, actually, you have to do continuous security assessment, such as 24/7. You need to make sure you do security assessment for your digital assets. Why is that? Because attackers are like that. They are not resting for you. They don't do periodically. That's mean you need to up in the game. so that you have to do it continuously. That's why you need breach and attack simulation kind of tools and automated security testing kind of solutions where you have to consistently test your security uh, part of your CI/CD pipelines and also part of or your SD or your development life cycle, and also before you put any or you publish any your business applications or mobile applications to the public. So these consistent assessment and also whatever the assets you have already published has to be tested continuous basis. As like the business, bringing the visibility for CISO to, take decisions is very essential. So how much visibility you can bring within the organization, that is very important. Otherwise, you can't really take the decisions. Again, the business profiling. So based on the business profiling, what you mean by business profiling? So you have annual revenue for your organization, right? And you have what are the critical processes and the systems actually helps you to achieve that particular revenue. Then based on that, you can actually derive to a quantifiable figure of that those critical process and systems actually can create actually who generate per day in terms of revenue. Then based on that, you can come up with a figure to quantify your cyber risk, right? So this business profiling that much important for you to come up with a quantifiable figure. Then actually you can come up with a kind of a rational based realistic figure for even for your risk transfer options such as a cyber insurance. Because how would you know whether $1 million for your organization is the right cover or $10 million is the right cover or something in between that? So most likely you will be taking a subjective decision. So that without the business profiling and right risk quantification methodology, you can't really derive to that kind of insight. Obviously, the training, as we saw, even with the global reports, training and educating users very important. Please always do tabletop exercises and always test through the cyber drills. That make sure whether test your cyber framework is or the incident response is adequate for your organization and what are the lessons learned you can further do. In addition, obviously the threat intel, external attack surface management plays a key role, especially threat intel. What are the even you can identify your leaked credentials and you can proactively deactivate them and also proactively contact your customers to deactivate them. Even for a bank, you can identify your leaked credit card details through external attack surface management kind of a solution uh, by identifying the pointers in the dark web and deep web. Finally, but the last or not the least, the security automation, especially the and incident response. That's something you need to do, especially when you mature your cybersecurity operations in the organization. You need to reduce mean time to detect and the mean time to respond window. That is very, very important. So how you build your SecOps with an organization. As soon as the SOC ticket created, how fast you can do it. 24 by 7, 365 days or throughout the year. That means it's not that SOC is reporting an incident on Friday night where the firewall admin coming on Monday early in the morning and then he check the mail source, then he try to block that particular malicious IP. That shouldn't be the case. You have to automate a lot of things. You most likely it is expected to that most of the L1 roles will be eliminated within next couple of years time with the AI email related technologies are taking over most our work. So that's something you need to really focus on security automation. So I think I covered pretty much about my presentation and I am open for any questions from the audience.
All right. Thank you, Suresh, for your very insightful presentations. Now I would like to request the participants, if you do have any questions, kindly let us know. We can pose it to the presenter. So
I see some are posted in QA. For me, it's
right,
still loading. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, there's one question which has come for Suresh your attention. I'll read the question uh, for you all to digest.
Yeah.
With AI growing rapidly over the last couple of years, and bad actors also utilizing them for attacks actively, what's your thought on how CISOs and security heads should take this to get the board's acceptance to use AI to counter these attacks and use them proactively to better the security posture? I think you'll be in a better position to answer this.
Yeah, I think I already covered some part of this question. So one thing is, you first thing I would say, the first thing before you move into most of the sophisticated AI related ones, you need to do the basics best in your organization. First, you need to make sure the basics are in place in your organization. Then only when your basics are getting matured, only you can even go ahead and justify, for a sophisticated or AI or the next gen kind of security solutions, right? Because you need, obviously, I mean, as I said, like we use the AI ML, the attackers also will use most of these, tools, right? Because we all know that AI is currently in the hype cycle. So because of that, obviously you need to have your basics done. And also you need to show what is the maturity level you're going to reach by using these technologies. It's not that you, by even if you don't have the basics in place, you can't really go and justify to the board that, by giving this magic bullet kind of a solution, you're going to reach the, you know, quite a level 5 of maturity in the CMM model, which cannot be done. Because first you need to mature yourself at least to the point 3 of a CMMI maturity model. Then only you can show them by introducing automation and AI ML kind of, we're gonna reach 4 and 5 kind level of maturity. So that's the way approach you have to take. You need to mature, you need to show the maturity within the maturity cycle of the organization.
Indika, are there any more questions that you would like to
There's a thought,
ask
I
Suresh?
suppose, because yeah, somebody has mentioned so oftenly many CISOs try to apply 100% security. It's a thought, I suppose, somebody's want to share. So oftenly many CISOs try to apply 100% security while ignoring business opportunity. So do you agree with it, or what's your view, Suresh?
Yeah, so I mean, 100% in terms, I'm not sure like what you mean by that percentage, whether like basically, the business opportunity also, I mean, the security should be aligned to the business opportunity, so that your 100% can be achieved by how you best you 100% align with your business opportunity. Because
I see.
otherwise, your 100% of the security gonna fail the business. It's like, you can't treat somebody who already dead, no, and otherwise. And also, simply you can't get, for example, if business is worth is $10 million, can you get your boat investment $100 million worth of security? Probably not, right? So how you balance between, so that's the skill you need to develop.
So it's a fine balance between achieving business objectives and risk management. That's
Definitely, Shane. They rightly said. So that balance is something you need to consistently validate yourself, uh, while your business is agilely grow, and also so do the attack surface. Then how you mature your security of your organization.
you mentioned tabletop exercises. Is it with the directors or with the C level?
Tabletop exercises, mostly relevant for the executive management, but no harm in doing a on and off one for the board of directors, because end of the day the execution happens from the top executive. For example, today if there's a cyber attack taking place, and if there's a deep fake video by your of your CEO being released, circulating among that, after an incident, how you gonna react to it? What is your media statements gonna do? And how you're going to contain it. So those things has to be uh, taken as part of your tabletop exercises, and you have to prepare for it. Otherwise, when in case it actually happens, there'll be, who's doing what, those questions going to come up. And the board of directors also have their role to play. That's something we need to educate them when this kind of thing actually happens, because especially for a statutory environment like a bank, the regulator made the board accountable for the cyber security, not really the executives below that. Meaning, uh, there are repercussions for the board if they are not fulfilling their duties as per the regulator. So those repercussions will directly apply for a cyber attack kind of a situation as well. So they have to be aware of it and they need to prepare for it.
I think a session on being forensically ready or forensic readiness of institutions might be useful for our members, isn't it, Suresh? I think we can have a workshop
Yes,
on that topic alone.
definitely, and it is very one of the very difficult thing to do, and because especially your environment is when you have a large and enterprise level environment, right? Because you have so many points to cover. But I think somewhere we need to start the journey. If you start it today, over a period of time, you should be able to mature your forensic readiness.
Right. So what sort of security implementations, in your opinion, required greater convincing of the board for investments or greater clarity or making a robust business case? Is it always a challenge, or now do you feel that the boards are a little mature now and they take cybersecurity seriously?
Yeah, so one thing is they take most of the board members I work with that take cybersecurity very seriously, especially in the banking and the finance sector. But however, especially when you try to come up with a bit of a mature cybersecurity solution, or a process control where they don't haven't thought through, right? So that's why I said you have to take them through the journey from the inception. Otherwise, at when you try to bring something really surprise for them, they not been for example, just imagine you suddenly come up with the proposal for a SASE solution, right? So these solutions are not coming cheap, right? So most likely to be I'll give like millions, couple of millions of dollars. So when you try to come up with a justification for such a solution, then all of a sudden they're going to see, okay, what is this about, and why you really need it, what's the value out of it, and it's very going you're going to have a really hard time to justify to the board. So, but rather you taking a risk-based approach. These are the risk in the organization. These are the ways of addressing it, and this how these kind of solutions gonna, help the long-term strategy of the organization. And by bringing these additional controls, these because there are better ways to handle certain things in future. For example, probably Alto also can go 100 kilometers per hour, and a supercar also can go, but yeah, and also if you take the technologies, even the speed, um, we no longer we are not using dial-up kind of internet technology, whereas there are better technologies now available, right? Similarly, how you can convince them in the future-proof technology which enable the business, the agility for future. So that convincement should happen by advocating them throughout the journey.
I think the point you touched on is very critical, and CISOs need to keep that in mind, where when the CISO suggests a solution, it is not the most comprehensive and expensive solution. Sometimes there are cheap options available also. That is where you can build trust with the board of directors in showing them that you're also mindful of cost, but at the same time the risk is taken care of.
Exactly, because you don't need a machine gun to shoot a mosquito
Yeah.
sometimes. So
All
that's
right.
something you need to get your board to understand.
All right. So with that, it's 7:05 now. We will conclude the session. I must thank you, Suresh, for your time and effort, for agreeing to be here with us and share your immense knowledge and experience with all of us. I must also thank the participants. We had about 55, 60 participants. Thank you very much for joining us. And our next session will be on, let me just try to retrieve this uh, e-fly and get the date out for you so that you can diarize it. Our next session, I believe, would be on the 28th of May, 20th of May. And the topic of that session would be top 10 threats that keep CISOs up at night. I'm sure Suresh would have touched on a few, but the present on the 28th will go delve into it a little deeper and exactly tell you what sort of challenges organizations face, especially in this dynamic threat and risk landscape. So with that, we will conclude today's sessions. Please do keep in touch, and you can follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. We will have all the information and registration links available to you. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Isaka.